Joe, John, hi again. Our weekly our weekly performance catch up as we hang with Joe a little bit through his preparations for the start of the season. And so I want to ask, I don't think I asked you this before, Joe. Um, what's your first event and when is it?
Um, so good day. My first race is about 3 weeks today, I think 3, 4 weeks today, mid-February. But interestingly, Nick, it's one I'm trying not to be that good at. I was world class at it last year, the best I've ever been, incredible, amazing, and it actually did me no good. So my first real race or the first race I need to be good at is in about 2 and a bit months. But I've got this weird race 5 minutes from my front door in a month, which I'm like, oh, I need to be good, but not that good.
So yeah, so 2.5 months. Well, 1 in 3 weeks that you don't want to peak too soon for, but it might be a kind of shakeout, like an event where you can just sort of gauge, right, where am I at?
Exactly.
Um, cool. The reason I'm asking is because this week apparently is Quitters Week. Quitters Week is the week that statistically all of those New Year's resolutions that we enter into about like how we're going to change our lives, um, habits we're going to form, habits we're possibly going to drop. Um, we get through to about this week, and then we say, "Oh, to hell with it," and we quit. Or chatting to John earlier, I think John may have also already started modifying some of his objectives, negotiating with himself to sort of um, bring some flexibility into more, reinstall some flexibility. So I'm curious. You know, your training started when November, and you've still got 3.5 months to go until the first race that you would be saying, I need to put in a proper performance. Like, how does it work? Like, how do you not end up having those conversations where you negotiate down? Like, how do you not quit?
Um, Firstly, sorry, my girlfriend is using the compressor in the background. If you can hear a pump going. But it's it's one of those things. It's worth firstly saying that it took me 3 years to consistently go to the gym. So it's one of those, it's like I'm a process driven person. I actually enjoy this time of year more than race season, if anything. So it's just waking up and not having to travel for me is the nice part of it because I'm in one place. Everything routine is how I thrive. But when say the gym, for example, this year is my big change, and that took a while for me to get into a routine. And I suppose you could argue that my January 1st is actually November 1st, because that's when I go back to work and start training and set new goals. So I'm effectively a few months in by now. But it took me a while with gym, especially because cycling is easy. I love riding my bike so much that even if it wasn't my job, I'd do it anyway. But with the gym, it was things like I actually hired a strength and conditioning coach this year to give me almost the financial guilt and responsibility to go. I started going once or twice a week with Maggie. So again, another bit of almost responsibility or um what's the word? Like someone to keep you honest with it. There's an actual word for this which I can't remember. Accountability.
Yeah.
And if I ever want to be on it with anything, at least in going to bed early, waking up early, if I put accountability into it, then I'm it's a whole different world for me. But I think that could be the elite athlete part side of me needing guilt tripping into doing certain things. I go well off negative reinforcement.
That's interesting. I mean, like all of the motivational stuff would, and by the way, I think I'm the same. Like, you know, I respond really well to doubt and criticism. Um, it and yeah,
I think just to come in, I think it's also especially a British thing, but a Northern English thing at that as well.
yeah,
I think
possibly.
just from very anecdotal evidence, the Americans are very different to us. They need positive reinforcement. And even I feel the more south you go in the UK, the less acceptable it is to give the kind of negative reinforcement we probably thrive off.
Yeah,
But it just works for me. And training is easy for me. Like literally what I love doing, but gym, it took a long time of kind of being bullied is definitely the wrong word, but kind of nudged in the right direction by two or three people who are in my network that I trusted enough to basically give them free rein to say, right, if I need a reinforcement, positive or negative, you have kind of the full right to do that.
Hmm. Um, what are you thinking about, John? I've made a few notes here.
So I'm kind of curious when you're talking about that accountability, what's the relationship with your cycling coach there? Is he kind of more of a case of like kind of quite hands-on, set a training schedule for the week, and it's down to you to decide what to do? And if you don't do it, but that's cool. Or is it like, there's some level of Joe, I'm disappointed in you this week. You didn't do what I told you to do.
Honestly, that's never been an issue. Like he sets my training every week, and Training Peaks is effectively my Bible. Like Training Peaks is the software everything goes onto, and there's it's if it's on Training Peaks in its little grey box, then I do it. And I don't know because it's whether that's just me using Training Peaks for 7 years, and that app runs my life more than anything else. It's been the one constant in my life for say 7, 8 years. I've moved countries, moved jobs, moved everything, but Training Peaks has always remained the same, rules my life. And I suppose that's not normal for most people to have a plan that's set in stone every day of the year. It's like, if you ask me where I was 3 years, 3 weeks ago, I go check my Training Peaks and tell you what bike ride I did. So having that sort of, I don't know, kind of plan is good for me, but I've never had to have a conversation with my coach where it's like, Joe, I'm disappointed you haven't done this. If anything, it's the other way. And he's like, hey, hold your horses. I only asked you to do 5 hours with 2 by 30. Why did you do 6 hours with 3 by 30? Um, but I say that is easy because it's bike riding and it's almost just it's in my system now. It's what I do. Gym took a while. Gym at first, if it wasn't on my Training Peaks, I wouldn't do it. So it kind of became that thing where again it had to be in the system. But now because I do it every Tuesday and Friday, it wasn't in my plan last week. But I automatically went to the gym at 7 o'clock, sat down, loaded up my session, and went, oh, I don't have a gym session today on Tuesday, but I just almost
Yeah.
wired myself so much that it's Tuesday, Friday. Again, the routine side of me coming out.
It's interesting how a lot of the language we would hear around training now, especially the influx of AI based training apps. It's all around how life gets in the way and training needs to adapt. Whereas in your case, it's like no, training gets in the way and life needs to adapt.
So what's really interesting, which I've been thinking about a lot recently, is I can go out and do a 4 hour ride, come back and do, let's say, an hour and a half of writing, and I feel like my day's been really unproductive because the riding is the constant in my life, whatever it is. The last 4 weeks I've averaged 27 hours a week on the bike. And then by the time you've faffed around with stop time or getting ready, kind of getting your bike sorted, you're talking close to a 40-hour week total. So it is like a 9 till 5 job. I was looking last night at my stats. For January, I've averaged 4 hours every day on the bike. Obviously some days I go shorter, some days I go longer, but still 4 hours a day is quite a lot just every day. But no, it's just January is the easiest time of year for me, without a doubt. Like one place, wake up, check my Training Peaks, go train, come back.
I'm hearing so I'm hearing quite a few things here. Um, I'm hearing like making commitments around. So I'm thinking about if I'm not a professional athlete, that I actually have a real job, but I've set myself some New Year's goals. Like what can I take out of like Joe's world? I'm hearing like commitments important. It might be financial, like I'm going to pay gym membership, and I might want to advertise like to my friends or my spouse. It's like I've spent this much money on a gym membership because then I've kind of got like I need to justify that. The idea of partnering with somebody, maybe not going out for an early morning run on your own, but trying to have an accountability partner might be quite helpful.
The
System might be important, like having a system, like not just freestyling it from the 1st of January onwards, but saying, I'm actually going to build some systems. I've got a great clip which I think is on our performance community, with Anton Leonard Brown, who's a rugby player, like New Zealand All Black. And it's a lovely clip of him talking about his system. And he's, it's all written out on a double page, handwritten schedule for the week. And that's his system. If it's got to happen, it has to go in the 2-page pullout. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. But anything that goes in there is locked. And he talks a lot about, and I'm curious what your opinion is on this, Joe. It gives him sort of mental calm. It puts him in the right mental place for him to perform when Saturday comes around. So he sees it as part of his mental preparation, that planning out the week. To what extent, so how do you keep your sort of mental game strong?
So every Sunday night or sometimes Monday morning, depending how tired I am after training on Sunday, I go through my next week just on my calendar on my laptop and block out as much as I can. For example, 10 till 4 I'm training. Here I do writing. Here I go to the gym. So this call is just scheduled for every week at 9 till 10 a.m. on Monday. And if I don't have my calendar built out, I don't have to stick to it 100%. But if I don't have it built out, I wouldn't say it leaves me on edge, but it's like I need it to be on the piece of paper or my laptop in this case. Because then, as I said, if it's locked in, that's my routine all of a sudden for the week. It's interesting because it's the thing which I struggle most with when I'm on the road is a lack of routine. And when I'm on the road is when I need to perform, because at the minute at home, it doesn't matter if I'm performing well or performing badly. It's just building to race day. Like that's the next from November through March 1, it's just prepping. That's easy because say I'm at home, I can routine my way out of it. But when I'm on the road is when I struggle most because there's not a routine because I'm in a different bed, I'm traveling, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. So my biggest challenge is actually how can I figure out to keep this routine when I'm on the road, which is something I've been struggling with for years. Um, but no, like the whole building the calendar thing out, I didn't do it until maybe last year. But I saw a friend of mine he works full time, but he's quite a high level athlete too. So almost the slight reverse of me. And he was doing the same. He's like, right, I have to work these hours. This is the time I can train. And it was all in the week before. So he'd look at his calendar on a Tuesday and go, cool, I have 7 to 8, I can do whatever. And time blocking has been my best friend. But going back to the gym thing as well, I think without making Tuesday, Thursday my gym days, and it was also taking away my kind of my grievances with the gym. I hate going to the gym, despise it with a passion. But I didn't hate the gym, I hated the gym culture. So even now there's a place here in Girona which is just you can hire out the space for 10 euros an hour, but it's your own private gym. It's got all the equipment I need. So one of my grievances was having to go to a place where I could get sick, see all these people I don't want to see. Yes, it costs a bit more money, but that's now something I can't complain about. So taking away kind of the barriers to doing what I don't want to do, just gives me less and less excuses. And I think that's another thing I've changed this winter.
Nice. Taking away barriers, having a system. I'm definitely thinking, and it might help people stick to their New Year's resolutions if they actually just schedule the whole of January. And I think the challenge with it is it's like making decisions, like little decisions give us opportunities to then negotiate with ourselves. Whereas if it's not a decision, it's actually scheduled. It's like it's in the book. I don't have the opportunity to make a decision about that. It's just done. Then that's helpful. The other thing I think might happen, and some evidence around this, that being able to reflect back. So, in 3 months' time, when you're a couple of weeks out from the first sort of serious competition, you would be able to look back over every week of your schedule to November the 1st. And if you found yourself in a moment where confidence was like, oh, it doesn't feel like it's fully where it needs to be, you would be able to look back over your schedule and reassure yourself that I have done the work. I deserve to feel confidence. Quite often people struggle with confidence. Like, how do I feel more confident? Well, you don't. There's the only way to feel more confident is actually do the work and be able to reflect on the work. So Yeah, it's interesting.
Well, my confidence does come through training. And again, that's something I've had to work on with my sports psych because that can be a hard thing, especially this time of year, because my confidence comes from my training. But there's still that doubt in my mind. I was going at the local testing climb here, and one of my direct competitors was doing an interval slightly harder than me. And he came past me, and I go, "Oh, is he ahead of me? Like, what's he doing? What's his training?" The logical side of me is like, well, he could have been doing intervals which are shorter than mine, harder than mine, because in a different training block. But immediately I saw this guy who, funny enough, was the one who beat me by a few seconds at the first race of the year last year. And I went, oh, what's he doing? But then you kind of got to step back and reflect that everyone's doing different things and different training methods and whatever. But thinking about it, I never really believed in oh, you have to have this goal on the horizon to prepare for. But I think that's because I've always got a goal on the horizon. Like every year, I know March comes around and I start racing. If I don't train well through winter, it's a really depressing thing to be off the back of a bike race. You just feel rubbish and it's a sad thing to be. So I've never really had to, it's not like I've had to entering a 5K in 3 months because race season just comes around. But I think
Yeah,
goal setting and like your New Year's resolution is great, but why are you doing them? Like, is there a goal at the end of it? Is there a target event?
yeah,
And I think having that target event also keeps you honest. Because if you want to say run a 5K in 2 months and you've never ran before, if you enter the event already and it's coming in 2 months, you're going to be on the start line whether you like it or not. So in my head, it's like, well, you may as well start training because it's going to be much more pleasant if you can enjoy that 5K than if you can struggle through it. So I
yeah,
think having
exactly.
an event to keep you honest, otherwise you're losing weight or you're getting fit for the sake of doing it. And I think
Yeah,
having a reason is you see this with triathlons quite a lot. I think people enter Ironmans and then they go, "Oh, that's a bloody long day out. Better get training because otherwise I won't be able to complete it or whatever."
exactly. Yeah. Um, I want to pick up on what you said about people from the north of England being, I think you were saying we're quite bloody minded. Um, just like the subject of feedback, I'm quite interested in feedback at the moment. Um, and so there's a lot of and what I'm curious about is there's a lot of evidence that suggests that positive feedback, negative feedback, actually is that's not the thing. It like that's not what moves the dial, whether it's positive or negative. Um, what we actually respond to is whether it's personal or task focused. And the suggestion being that we respond a lot better to feedback which is specific and task focused, negative or positive. Um, we want to get better at the things we're good at, so we're happy to be complimented, and we want to obviously kind of cover off the things that people perceive as not being so good at. But the danger with positive and negative feedback is it falls into the trap of like cheerleaders or critics, and it's easy for me to dismiss both actually and say, oh well, he's never liked me, he's never appreciated me, or yeah, look, yeah, I'd discount in that because it sounds a bit cheerleadery. So I'm really curious about these two different sort of axes for feedback. And so my question is, which taken me a long time to get to the question. My question is like, tell us more about how you respond to feedback. What kind of feedback? Where does it come from?
So I don't think it's necessarily positive, negative, constructive, whatever for me. I think it's more who it comes from, not what
Right.
type of feedback. So we spoke last week about slightly narrowing off my, as you call it, performance circle or whatever. Basically having less chefs in the kitchen when it comes to performance. Um, and the beauty with elite sport, I suppose, most things in life actually, is everyone's got an opinion, whether you want it or not, they're happy to tell you their opinion. And for me, I know this isn't something I've been good at in the past, but this winter especially, if the opinion's coming from someone I trust and someone I've subconsciously allowed into my circle, like my circle, then I don't care what the feedback is. I know it's coming from a good place. It's when I start getting like, I don't know, person A's feedback from a group ride or this person's feedback from, I don't know, social media. And I've very much learned now, if it's someone I trust, then whatever feedback they're saying, positive, negative, task, personal, it's coming from a good place. Whereas, and it's coming at the end of the day to bring me up as a person and as an athlete. And I think that's the biggest change for me. Is not necessarily listening to feedback from people who I don't, not saying I don't trust, that's the wrong word, but people who I haven't decided to be part of my core team. And yeah, I think that's just as important as what the feedback is or how it's structured as who it comes from.
Who it comes from, and I think I'm also hearing you say the purpose of the feedback, which might be connected to the trust thing. It's like you're safe in the knowledge that the purpose of the feedback is to make you a better version of you. It's not to bolster somebody else's confidence or to, serve somebody else's needs. So the purpose of it is to support you, and that might be really aligned with who's on your inner circle and who you trust.
And I think that almost a question for both of you, it's like when you're working in, let's say, a corporate environment, I suppose your manager might not necessarily have your best interests at heart, but the company's or the shareholders' best interests at heart. So like would that necessarily change how you perceive feedback? Because they're your manager, but they're not necessarily on your team, if that makes sense.
Yeah, John, what do you think?
Yeah, I would say in the kind of business world, it's probably a lot harder, takes a lot longer to build up and like that true understanding of who your core team are. Um, yeah, especially when you're perhaps changing jobs, so changing environments on a regular basis. You does take a while to understand whether people are giving you feedback in their kind of particular best interest, or if they're trying to make you a better person. Um, yeah, I don't have any quick and easy answer for how you can identify, which camp people are in. I think it's something that just comes with a little bit of experience and also just your personal confidence in yourself and the job that you're doing.
I wonder if
Yeah,
that comes back to mentors as well and having
exactly.
someone on the outside of, they might not be in company A, B, or C, but they know you well enough and they know your industry or your world well enough that maybe your new manager's the nicest person in the world, maybe the meanest person in the world, but it takes someone slightly on the outside to give that perspective you need, which even in often in my kind of training environment, it's good to have someone who's connected to me and knows what's going on, but isn't part of my everyday life. So I sometimes speak to my sports psych who I've worked with for a few years. He's not involved in every single day, but he knows where I'm going, knows the goal, but he's quite black and white with stuff. Like he can see things away from the environment, and I think that's often important, not getting bogged down into the details. Even John, some of the conversations we had late last year with Ribble when we were in London, like you knew my side, you could see their side, but you could kind of objectively give an opinion. I think that's very important for me anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, couldn't agree more. That's the whole idea of a mentor, right? It's like not of your environment, and we might be able to take information from them because we know that is the purpose of that information is to make us better. Whereas, the trust question comes in if it's from colleagues or bosses, or it's like, well, are we really sure that the purpose is to help us to get better at stuff? Um, Trust is a combination of character and competence. We're probably making, John says it takes some time to be able to evaluate character and competence. Yeah, it's an interesting subject. Right, we've gone on for quite a long time, and let's wrap it up. What what have you loved about the last week, Joe? And what are you planning to do about that this week?
The last week, I've ridden my bike an awful lot this last week. And I've explored. The beauty of this time of year for me is I can go exploring with like no kind of consequences. So what I loved was probably the first half of yesterday when I went exploring up a mountain and went to find snow, out training. What I learned is that when you're at the top of a mountain at 1,200 meters, you need to make sure both your brakes are working. because I had to descend down this mountain with only one break. Um, but no, so for me, it is just riding my bike this time of year and exploring new roads. And I'm actually at the end of a training block. I'm really tired at the minute. So like probably got 5 more days of this block, then I can just chill out and rest, which I'm quite excited for. But no, learning to kind of listen to myself, as in like I've created one of my New Year's resolutions was to be a morning person, more like wake up. I'm in Girona, so it's not that much of a morning person, but wake up before 8 every day. Whereas training a lot, I've been getting more tired, and I've gone actually step back. You need sleep more than this New Year's resolution. So that was a big thing for me. Kind of letting go of my New Year's resolution to have an extra half an hour in bed and actually sleep properly to recover.
So John, like, feel better about yourself. Joe's an elite athlete, and he's already in quitting week and been negotiating with himself on the 8 a.m. get up time.
I've been checking my aura data though. It's doing me good, I promise.
He's employing his systems to support his negotiations with himself. I can sleep longer.
Data-driven decisions, Nick.
Data-driven decisions. Love it. Right. Have a brilliant week, both of you. And I hope we'll find time to catch up again next week.
Thank you. Speak to you guys soon.
Cheers.